Disneyland is your land.
Come seek an adventure at the old pirates, eh?
Make the jump to light speed.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
Between Disneyland and Disney California Adventure, there are two large theaters capable of housing elaborate stage productions with large audiences. One's a nightmare, the other one's a dream. But neither of them are being utilized for shows. What's going on with theater inside Disneyland? Disneyland, of course, has several theaters throughout the park, but has always had at least one large theater running. Even back in the winter of 1955, Walt ran a circus tent with a recurring show. And since that time, there have been large theaters in Tomorrowland and other spaces around the castle. Disney California Adventure opened with the idea that it would have just as many theatrical experiences as it would rideable attractions. But recently, the shows that have been running in actual theaters are lower capacity and geared towards youngsters. Shows like Disney Junior at DCA and the Tomorrowland Dance Party at Disneyland. Of course, there's still a lot of street theater at Disneyland, which is wonderful, and some of the theaters like the Royal Theater are designed to have that kind of show where everything is costumes and a few hand props, nothing else. But that style has actually started to come over into the theaters where we used to be seeing elaborate sets and complex shows and things like that. Disneyland's largest theater, the Fantasyland Theater, has seats for about 1,800 people, and it opened in 1985. It was built in record time because it became Videopolis. If you don't know, then you're missing out, because Videopolis was the huge hit of the 80s at Disneyland, and it had this huge dance floor and a bunch of screens, I think 70 video monitors on stage that had music videos playing and plus live feeds so you'd see yourself up on stage, and tons of artists like Debbie Gibson, New Kids on the Block, Tiffany, The Jets, New Edition, Shannon, Midnight Star, Taylor Dane, Janet Jackson all came and performed at Videopolis, and it was broadcast out on a television show of the same name. It's pretty obvious that this theater was built very quickly. If you look up, it really only has a few large positions out front of house. A typical modern theater that is going to house a lot of lighting and projections will have a lot more positions than just a single catwalk coming around, and so it's kind of limited out front of house. I haven't been backstage personally to really look at it, but there's only a few hanging positions back there. It's fairly limited on what it can fly in and out, things like that. So it definitely was a theater that was built very quickly, kind of had one purpose in mind, but then it started to be used for other things. In the early 90s, they started running a Christmas show called Mickey's Nutcracker, and it's a 31-minute musical based on the original Nutcracker, with Minnie being the main character of the musical. And it was really well done. They really went all out, and they built some really nice scenery and beautiful choreography and lots of rehearsal, and they built this show, and then they put it on stage for us at Disneyland, and it was a big hit. Videopolis closed in 1995, and for the next decade, the Fantasyland Theater housed a number of elaborately staged musicals. They were really beautiful, they had great scenery, and wonderful shows to catch while you were at the park. There was The Spirit of Pocahontas, there was Animazement, there was Snow White, the Enchanting Musical, and one for the younger set, Mickey's Detective School, all while doing Christmas-themed shows during the holidays. In 2006, the theater took a turn, and for 6 years, it was the Disney Princess Fantasy Fair location, running until August 2012. But theater came back in 2013 with Mickey and the Magical Map, which a lot of people probably still remember that show. It ran all the way through until 2020, so it had a really good long run. It was, again, a fairly elaborately staged show that included projections and video screens, yes, but it also had a lot of practical elements to it. It had a large stage set, and it went through a lot of wonderful Disney shows, kind of giving us a musical review with a loose plot, kind of tying it all together. But there were a lot of fans for it, and I was one of them. I was a big fan as well. Mickey and the Magical Map closed due to COVID, and then they decided to not open it, or maybe they were planning on closing it at that point the whole time, but it never came back. And since that point, we have not had a large-scale, elaborate production with a large set, and lots of lighting, and an intricately choreographed and thought through and directed production in that space. We just haven't had one since then. We did have Tale of the Lion King, which ran from 2022 to 2024, and it was a great show, but it was originally designed as a street show. It used to play down in DCA as a street show, and they added some technical elements to it, but it still never really got beyond that commedia dell'arte kind of street show style, which is like its strength is that it's low tech. You know, that style of theater is wonderful, but one of the really things that makes it work is that it's kind of low tech. Since Tale of the Lion King closed this last January, the space has gone back to being essentially a meet and greet. There's like a Pixar Pals Playtime party, and right now they're running holiday fun with Santa and friends, and it makes sense. I mean, maybe you don't want to put Santa right next to the brand new Tiana's Bayou Adventure that just opened. And there's, you know, I will say that both of these were relatively well done. They did hire some actors to come out and talk to the crowd, and they had thought through, and there was a tiny little bit of choreography and a little bit of technical magic to kind of make it special, but it's nothing like the space used to have. So I really don't know what the future of this space is. I am a proponent of actually tearing down the Fantasyland Theater and building a better theater for the people to come in the park and see shows during the afternoons. Maybe one that blocks out the sun a little bit more, but still has like an open air kind of feel to it, and definitely one that has better technical capabilities. Is that what they're going to do? Does it seem like Disneyland's going to spend a lot of money on that right now? Is that part of Disneyland Forward? I kind of doubt it, but it's possible. If not, we're just going to see meet and greets continue at this space, at which point they should just pull out the benches, you know. But anyways, the Fantasyland Theater has never been the strongest theater, you know, ever, but it's always been a fun place. Personally, I'd be happy with a show there that was just a character show, but not necessarily oriented only towards kids like Disney Junior is, but something that's all ages. The Hyperion Theater over in Disney California Adventure opened as part of Hollywoodland with the park in 2001, and it can fit a little bit more than the Fantasyland Theater, but they are, you know, equitable. It fits 1,984 people. It's a facade that's modeled after that of the Los Angeles Theater on LA's Broadway. The Hyperion Theater is a really nice space. It's got a lot of capability. It's got a wonderful front of house and a wonderful on stage. It's got a large fly system. It's got a trapped floor. There's a lot of things you can do in this space with modern technology. The big glaring omission with this theater is, where is the lobby? Why isn't there a lobby? There should be a lobby. The theater opened with a big, huge show called Steps in Time. It was essentially just a musical review, but boy, they did it in a really cool, elaborate California stage theatrical way. It was a really cool show. After that, The Power of Blast ran for a little while, which was kind of like a stomp kind of blast thing. But then, 3 years in, they hit a really nice formula. They hit Disney's Aladdin, a musical spectacular. And this show premiered in January of 2003 and ran all the way through 2010, and it was a huge hit. The genie stole the show every night, won over the audience, or every show, I should say. It would run 3 times a day, typically. In 2010, there was talk of Toy Story the Musical coming to the theater, but they actually didn't do that, and they kept running Aladdin all the way until 2016. So that show was really a big deal and a big part of your park experience for years and years and years. You knew that at some point in your day over at DCA, you could head over to the Hyperion Theater and you'd watch an air-conditioned, almost hour-long show that was really good, that was extremely high quality. And it was a high point of the day, and really filled out the day. It also sucks in huge amounts of crowds to see a really good show. And I think, generally speaking, there were, fewer empty seats at the Hyperion than there ever were at the Fantasyland Theater. The next show to run was Frozen live at the Hyperion, which ran from 2016 until the pandemic shut it down. This show is different than the show that was conceived for Broadway, and a lot of aspects of it, like Sven, for instance, I think are actually done better. It doesn't have the budget that the Broadway show has, and it's something that has to be done 3 times a day, so they have to make it flexible. But still, it's got a revolving stage, a lot of flying elements. It's quite the spectacle, and it was really well done. It was a good version of Frozen. Since the pandemic, the theater has mostly sat empty. It has spent most of its time, at least not open to the public for a show, that's for sure. It has had a one-act show called Rogers the Musical, a Marvel musical, run for a while. It was a shorter show. It was a lot of fun, though. I'm glad that they did it. It was loosely based off an episode of Hawkeye, where Hawkeye went to Broadway and saw a show, and they ran with it. And it was a lot of fun. And we're not sure why it didn't last longer. The question is does Disney have interest in putting on an elaborately staged show at Disney California Adventure anymore? I'm not sure. I sure hope they do. There's a lot of talk, it would make sense for the theater to get incorporated into Avengers Campus and house some type of Marvel stunt show, like they have over in France. But who knows if that's going to happen here or not. There's no casting calls or anything going out for anything that looks like a show at the Hyperion. And the second there is a casting call, it'll certainly make headlines because everybody misses the Hyperion experience as part of DCA, that's for sure. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Great hang with you today. May the light in the firehouse window always shine brightly, and may your dreams always come true.